guys, AllyZieMage here, and today I decided I wanted to talk about the good old days of softball. And I know that I've mentioned before that I used to play softball, but I don't think I've really talked about it too much. So you guys might be in eternal suspense of, oh, was she good? What position did she play? Yeah. I don't know. I'm sure you guys are actually like that excited about this or curious. I wanted to vlog and I decided to vlog about softball because nothing else is interesting in my life. So I started playing softball when I was 10. Yes, when I was 10. And I started because my mom wanted me to play sports because she felt bad because she was going to school again, so she wasn't around as much. And my stepdad worked late sometimes. And my brother was 5 years older than me. So I was kind of home alone a lot, / in my room a lot by myself, and I was in elementary school, and she kind of felt bad about that. So she tried getting me into like sports in 4th and 5th grade. So when I was 9 and 10. In 4th grade, I played basketball. I didn't really like it. So then in 5th grade, I started doing, my school had an intramural basketball team, but not softball team. So we had to go through like the town or Little League. Yeah, we went to Little League. And I started playing softball when I was 10. And that was fun. I actually really enjoyed it. I never played a t-ball as a kid. I didn't play any sports when I was a kid. I did dance and I did karate when I was small. But basketball was my first official sport. And then softball. And I didn't really know what position I wanted to play. My mom was pitcher, but she was adamant about me not pitching because she didn't like it and she didn't end up playing a lot of positions or getting playtime where she would have liked to. She was either pitching or benched, or sometimes she'd be put in the outfield actually. But yeah, she thought that my time playing softball would be a lot better if I didn't pitch. And then me, being a Leo and love being the center of the attention, was like, I'll try pitching, I'll volunteer. Because our team didn't really have too many pitchers, and they were like, okay, who wants to volunteer to pitch? And I was like, me! My mom was like, God damn it, Allie. So pitcher was my main position, actually, throughout all of my softball years. And I wasn't the best player, but I was definitely one of the better ones, and I probably could have been up there for my school and everything if my coaches didn't hate me. And I know this sounds like a typical argument, but there was some actual prejudice there. So it was fine up through 7th grade. Because I couldn't play in 6th grade. 6th graders weren't allowed to play sports. I was also my 6th grade class was the first one to be back at the middle school also, so that was part of it. But 6th graders weren't allowed to play, so I was the manager on the team instead. So I got to know some of the girls and the coaches, blah, blah, blah. And then come 7th grade, the coaches changed. So getting to know the coaches became absolutely useless. And one of the new coaches was an art teacher that didn't like me in school and didn't like me in softball either. But that was fine. That wasn't a big deal. And then come 8th grade, it became a big deal because then we had like A-B teams versus the 7th and the 6th grade, or the 8th, 7th, and 6th grade teams. We had A-B-C teams. So 7th graders could be on the A team with 8th graders, and some 8th graders could get bumped down to the B team. Now, while I was not permanently on the B team, I did have to go down to play a couple of games there with the excuse that they didn't have a good pitcher. And I was not the best pitcher on the A team by far. Like, I've always been able to have the speed for pitching. It's just that sometimes my control was not there, so there would be like wild pitches. But otherwise I was pretty good. And I was really good on offense. Like, most of the time, if I got up to bat, I would hit or I would walk. There were very few times I actually struck out. The times that I did get out, it was on a hit. And it's not like I had wimpy weak hits. They hit back infield / outfield. And I was always very aggressive in stealing bases and taking large leadoffs and things like that. So there wasn't really an actual reason put me down on B team because I was strong enough. And this was the same coach as my Little League coach too, come middle school, who was the father of one of the girls on the team. And she didn't want to play second base, and I wanted to play second base, but he was determined that she was going to play second base, even though she didn't want to play second base. So I never got to play second base. And pretty much how my mom described it through middle school was that any time that, and she was the same year as me, so we were always on the same team. I'm going through most of this. So how my mom described it is this coach would pretty much put me at a new position if I wasn't pitching, and as soon as I started to like that position, get good at it, he would move me to another position. So I have literally played every single position besides catcher. That's a lie. I was catcher last term in softball for my gym class. Huh. But anyways. So that was mostly middle school, was just kind of bouncing around and having that shit experience. I got to high school, and the first year, it was great. We only had a JV and varsity. Did we have a C team? We might have had a C team. Or was it just JV and varsity? I think we had a C team because a lot of people tried out and coach was able to pull one together. I don't know. Either way, I was pitcher again. Yeah, we had a C team if I was pitcher again. So I didn't get a chance to play too much in good places. And the thing is, all freshmen got put on C team. That's what it was. Okay, I remember this now. We were all just on C team. And I was primary pitcher because out of the freshman class, I was the best pitcher. There was like one or two other people that tried pitching. And some of us were pulled up to JV games, and I was one of them. And I was doing really well. I liked the coach who was working with me on my pitching, things like that. And then the next year comes around, and I decide that I don't want to be a primary pitcher that year, so I'm not even considered as a pitcher for JV, and we do tryouts and everything. And Bobby, the coach then, who was also an assistant teacher for my biology class, I want to say, he was like, I'll bounce you. You're going to be primarily JV, but I'm going to have you down on the C team sometimes also for when they need you. And I was like, okay, that's fine with me. That's fine. And what ended up happening is that I was almost permanently on C team and other people kept getting brought up instead of me. And it was really annoying because Bobby took the advice of the coach that I don't like, which I'm not going to name names, even though it's not going to go anywhere if I do, but whatever. He would take the advice of him of who to bring up, and he had other people that he wanted to push up to JV instead of me, so I never got put up there, even though sometimes when we would practice, like, as a full team, the varsity coach would see me playing. She didn't have, like, any say in this, but she would see my form, me just performing, and she'd be like, why aren't you playing JV more? I'm like, I'm not getting pulled up. So that happened. I did end up lettering, though, that year. Somehow. I ended up lettering. I don't know why, because normally only if you play varsity. I think I actually did get on varsity once for a game. Once or twice. But yeah. So that year I said that I wasn't pitching, but because he would bench me otherwise, I still ended up pitching a lot more than I wanted to. Because there's that or get benched, and I didn't want to be benched because I was by far, again, the strongest pitcher on that team because guess what? I'm playing with a lot of freshmen now and a couple of shitty sophomores. So that happened, and then I actually want to say when I switched schools and moved to New Hampshire, this has all been in Colorado. I played for 2 more years in New Hampshire, and I want to say at that point, I was probably the second or third best player in the league, or on that team, those 2 teams that were there. Some of the girls were new and had never played before. Others were just bad. I was still on JV, though, because I went into it being like, I know how to pitch, but I'm not pitching here. If you guys need a backup pitcher, I can do it, but I am not a primary pitcher. And they're like, yep, that's fine. We don't have a pitcher right now for JV, so at the start of the season, we're going to use you to pitch there. But as soon as we find pitchers for JV, you're going up to varsity because you have the skill set for varsity. And I was like, great, cool. Wonderful. Yes. I'm junior at this point. I'm like, fine, I'll be on JV for a short period of time. And so 2 other people start trying to pitch for JV. I'm like, okay, this is good. I'm teaching them how to pitch, yada, yada, yada. And then, what ends up happening is one of them decides that she doesn't want to pitch, but because I've already been told I'm going up to varsity, I'm like, I'm not going to keep pitching JV when I can go up to varsity and play there, because I want to play there. So she ends up being like, oh, my arm hurts too much to pitch. I can't pitch. My arm hurts. And so she gets excused out of playing completely, just so that she doesn't have to pitch. She makes up this arm injury. And then she gets pulled up to varsity to do pinch running. So basically, if you have someone that, especially pitcher and catcher, if you don't want them actually running the bases, you can swap them out. And you can have like pinch hitters and pinch runners. So like they bat, they get on base, and then you swap them for a pinch runner. Because it's her arm that's hurting, she can do this. So I still end up having to pitch all of JV. And what ends up happening is about halfway through the season, and like I said, on JV I was absolutely the best player. This team sucked. We won. Did JV win any games that year? I don't know. I know my senior year, we won 1 game in the entire season. Back in Colorado, my team was one of the top teams in the division. Like, we ended up getting bumped up a division my sophomore year because our team was too good for the division that we had been at first. So we got bumped up into the highest ranking division my sophomore year. That's how good my team was in Colorado. Then I moved here, where we're in the lowest division, at the lowest spot, because we maybe win a game per year. Maybe. So, what ends up normally happening in these games is that a normal game is like 80 pitches. My team, because they couldn't do shit, would end up having 80 pitches per inning. So it was pretty much like I was pitching 5 games back to back to back. Because we didn't have backup pitchers because no one else wanted to pitch. And then, come our rivalry game, sometime towards the end of the season, I was pitching and it was the rivalry game, so I wanted to like do my best. I'm like, okay, let's go take down this other school. We got this. We can do this. I think we actually, nope. The varsity team ended up winning that game. We didn't. I just wanted to, by the end of that, I just wanted to get out of that game. And what ended up happening was, let's do some demonstrations. Let's see if I can demonstrate this while wearing my headphones. That's going to be the fun part. So, when you pitch, it's normally like a full windmill, like this. But by the end of that game, my arm was so tired and like dead and bad that my pitching was like this. Like my arm came up to like maybe here when it should be up here. So because of that, I ended up screwing up all of the muscles from about here through my arm here and down my back to about here. It's just a lot of scar tissue right now. And I had to do physical therapy for a while, blah, blah, blah. It still hurts me a lot of the time. I have to still be careful about doing anything. I still played softball one more year after that because I was like, you know what? I've made it through 6 years of this shit. I'm doing it one more year. I'm not done. I'm doing this. So I ended up playing again the following year. Oh, we ended up not playing the game after the rivalry game because I was like, yeah, no, I can't pitch. My arm is literally killing me right now. I am not pitching. So we ended up canceling that game, and then a bunch of people got pissed because I ended up getting put on varsity. Only the JV game got canceled, and I ended up getting pulled up to varsity for the varsity game. Granted, I didn't play in the field. I did bat and run, though. And the girl I replaced a girl that was faking an army injury to get up onto varsity. I replaced her. She was so mad. But hey, karma. And then the next year I was on varsity the entire time. I didn't pitch at all. But I also didn't get played that frequently because the coach didn't like the seniors that he had that year. And he very rarely played them because he liked his freshmen better. One, I'm of the opinion that freshmen should never play varsity. Every single team that I've been on or seen that had freshmen on their varsity was just a fucking mess. You don't do that. If you're a coach, understand that no matter how good that freshman is, put them on JV. Give them 1 year of being on JV, and then they can be on varsity. They will learn manners that way, and they'll learn not to be a cocky little fuck. Because remember how I said that my senior year we won 1 game? That was the senior game. So a lot of schools have like senior games where all of the seniors play, and it's pretty much to commemorate them of like, oh, farewell. And you normally get like flowers and shit and do pictures, and people write speeches about you, blah, blah, blah. I don't even remember who wrote my speech. Sorry, kiddo. Maybe it was Brianna. I don't know. She and I had a love-hate relationship. But like, that was the 1 game we won, was the senior game when all of the seniors were playing. I really wanted to go to the coach and be like, hey, what do you think happened in this game that didn't happen in the other games? Why do you think we won? Because you played the seniors. Like, let me give you a story of what one of the freshmen did, Brianna. I would often play second, she'd play short. And she was the cockiest person I've ever met. No, she wasn't. That's actually not true. But anyways, there was one point where I missed a grounder that was hit hard to me because it was in a weird spot. And the outfielder didn't back me up correctly, so she also missed it. And Brianna said something along the lines of, why don't you catch the ball, or something like that. And she's just being a real bitch to me. And I just look at her and I'm like, not on the field, we'll handle this in the dugout. And she tried going off on me in the dugout of like being like, oh, you're so commanding, blah, blah, blah. You're so bossy, you think you're better than everyone. And I just kind of looked at, she's like a good couple of inches shorter than me, for one. Like, she comes up to here on me. I just kind of look at her and I'm like, dude, piss off. You're a freshman. You can't play the game well half the time. Do not dare to say shit to me on the field in front of other players not on our team. That just makes our team look even shittier than it already is. Thank you for embarrassing all of us. And then I put my helmet on and went to the batter's box. Not to the batter's box. I was on deck, I think. I don't know. It was close to me batting time. My batting time. And I was just so pissed off at her. She had... That was the worst attitude probably given to me by an underclassman. Like, personally given to me. Not just, like, in general, the freshmen being shitty to upperclassmen. That was the worst that was, like, personally given to me. And it... Jesus fucking Christ. Because she had a friend on the team named Tatum that she would rather have played with, who would play second a lot of the time. And so she always threw a hissy fit when Tatum wasn't playing second and I was. We also had another girl who would play shortstop. So I really wish Coach had figured out that if Brianna's at shortstop, you put Tatum in. If I'm at second, you put Alyssa in. Would have made everything better. But apparently also, this is the last story and then I'll end this because it's already hitting 20 minutes. When I would pitch on JV before like my arm injury, and this is a habit that I've had for a long time, is that in softball you cannot lead off if the ball is in the pitcher's mound. Like if someone's holding it in the pitcher's mound, it doesn't have to be the pitcher. If anyone has the ball in the pitcher's mound, you cannot lead off of a base. You have to make a decision of where you're going. Oh, actually, no, there's another story that I want to say after this. But anyways, so a lot of the times I would walk Well, so my lead or my step for pitching would generally take me to the edge of the pitcher's mound, and then I walk up a couple more steps to get the ball. So then the catcher's not throwing it super far. We have less of a chance of an overthrow, and then people are able to run. So I'd walk up a few paces, and then I would walk back. And as I walked back, I glared at whoever was on third base. Like, not on my team, but if there was a runner on third base, I would just be staring them down as I walked back to the mound. A lot of the time, they would, like, just scurry back over to third. But then, one day, my third baseman comes up to me and she's like, Allie, I know you're not looking at me when you're doing this, but you're terrifying. When you stare at people on third base as you walk back, you are terrifying. And I'm like, that's what I'm going for. Not gonna run if you're scared to death. Am I right? I'm right. Because there were times, and like every one of my basemen knew this, that if someone was taking a lead off and they weren't going back as I walked back to the mound, I would throw them down. Because that's how we would get outs. So I would just like lob the ball or like pellet it towards the baseman. They would tag them. Boom, we're good. Or at least it'll scare them back to the base. And hey, they're not going towards the other side. They're too scared now. They know that I'm going to do shit. They'll definitely start taking shorter leadoffs, which is in the end worse for them because then they have to run further if the ball actually does get hit. But anyways, another story is that one time when I was on second, like I said, I take large leadoffs. Between bases is 60 feet in softball, 90 feet in baseball. But my leadoff was generally like 15 feet, 15 to 20 feet. And so I'd be like a third of the way, like a quarter to a third of the way to the next base by the time I ended my leadoff, which is by the time the ball hits the catcher. And there was one time that the catcher was starting to get pissed at me. And I've been thrown down at second before. You just dive back, you try and get under it. If you don't, that's your fault for taking a big leadoff unless your coach tells you to. Then it's your coach's fault. But anyways, The catcher was starting to get pissed at me because I keep taking this giant lead off, and I will stand there until the ball gets back to the pitcher. Once the pitcher starts walking back, I'll like jog back over to the base. Yeah. But until then, I just stand there. Well, I know I'm not standing. I'm like in my... So, when we lead off, we have a stance that's like this. So I'll just be kind of like this, of like, oh, which way am I going? Who knows? And I'm like all ready and stuff. And the catcher's just like doing this whole fake feint of like, oh, I'm going to throw you down. I'm going to throw you down. I'm like, no, you're not. You haven't done it yet. So I was just still standing there. And then the umpire goes, runner on second out. And I'm like, what? And my coach just walks out and he's like, what? And he's like, oh, yeah. She had to make a decision. She had to decide if she was going to second or she's going to third. She can't just stand there. I'm like, why not? He's like, because the catcher has the ball. I'm like, okay. Not going to argue. You're the umpire. I can't really argue with you. But okay. And he was like really adamant. He was getting pissed that we were questioning him. And so I go back to the dugout. I'm like, the fuck just happened? And then at the end of the game, the umpire comes up to me and is like, hey, I'm sorry. I realized I made a bad call. You weren't supposed to be out. I got it mixed up. I thought that if the catcher had the ball, you had to make a decision between the bases. But no, it's if the pitcher has the ball. And I'm like, in the mound. He's like, oh, yeah, that too. I'm like, thanks. Thanks. So that was probably the most stupid reason I've been called out before. Is that I was chilling out, pissing off catcher. And the umpire's like out because like we weren't doing anything. He thought that we were just wasting time because the catcher's trying to figure out what the fuck they're going to do. I'm just like chilling out there halfway to third. I wasn't halfway, but like however big my leadoff was that time, I'm just like, yep, chilling out. Catcher's like, hey, I'm gonna get you. I'm like, no, you're not. And the umpire was like, I've had enough of this. You're out. I'm like, okay. But yeah. So that's my softball time. I stopped playing after high school because of my arm injury. Physical therapy wasn't helping it. I tried doing massage therapy too. It made it better so that I wasn't in never-ending pain, but it still wasn't the best in the world. So that was that. I've considered trying out for the team at my campus, but I don't think I ever will. I'm a junior this year for one. The season hasn't started, but tryouts have already happened. I don't think my arm's in good enough condition. Like, I think if I started playing, I would fuck it up again or even more. And now that I'm going to get more scar tissue on my heart, it's like, hey, let's not fuck up the rest of my body too. So I won't try out next year, but I did play softball through the gym classes last term, and that was fun. It was nice. It was nice to see the sport again, to hold a softball, to do throwing and stuff. Because, like, the warm-up throwing there would often, like, leave my arm kind of like, no. So, yeah. I don't think I'll ever get back into the sport until I'm, like, having my midlife crisis and try to do slow pitch. I fucking hate slow pitch. You can't steal. You couldn't steal in the gym class either. It was halfway to slow pitch, but yeah. But that wraps up today's vlog. I hope you guys enjoyed this blast of the past for AllyZieMage. I hope you have yourself a magical day. Magical day. Blah, 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 blah. And I hope your Thanksgiving goes swellly. Words. Anyways, I shall see you next time. Bye.